Ship Happens, episode 26. Let's talk about failure. Now, I know failure isn't really the best, cool topic to talk about, but around this time, I always kind of see that a lot of people kind of fail at their New Year's resolution, or they cave in. If they want to lose some weight, they caved in. If they want to get better at doing something, they've caved in. And it's also around the time that Lent has started, and it's really difficult to get going and to do a whole lifestyle change like that. So let's talk a little bit about failure and how we can take failure and make something out of it. I think that's the hardest thing to relay to students and to really anyone is how can you take failure? How can you take a mistake and succeed and make something more out of it? And when I think about failure in terms of teaching, I'm thinking more like, okay, I failed these kids. Not necessarily I gave them an F, but I could have done better. I could have made something better. I could have done something differently to make them or to help them learn better. And I think that's something we struggle with as teachers, is we struggled with how we can take our failure and make it successful. And I think that goes with almost any job, to be honest with you. How can you fail at something but still turn around and make that something successful? I'll be honest with you, I haven't quite figured it out. I've gotten close. I'll give you some examples in my life. I failed at a lot of different things growing up. If we're talking about silly class selections, that sort of thing, I failed at it. If we're talking about projects, assignments, lessons, I failed. I messed up these lessons. If we're talking about this podcast, there's been times where I failed. But how can I take those failures and make something out of it, to grow on it? The best story comes with a chair I was building, actually fixing a chair. It was a household chair that I had in my house, and someone sat on it, broke it. I said, you know what, I can fix that. I have a video of me trying to fix this thing, and I thought I knew how to fix it. I was going through, doing everything right, cutting things. I was like, this is cake. I can finish this chair in a couple minutes, then be on to the next project. I put it all together. I went to go sit on it, and I fell through the chair myself. I was so upset. I ended up throwing that chair away. It wasn't until a couple days later when I pulled the chair out of the trash can and decided to really take my time with it. There was so much wood that was missing, it was damn near impossible to actually make that something. I had a couple choices. I didn't really have a lathe or anything to cut a new leg out of, so I had to keep the existing leg and slowly start adding glue and filler and start building a new leg out of it. I know a lot of you that maybe like traditional woodworkers are kind of cringing right now just hearing that, but it's that process to build, that process of building that made it so impactful. The process of failing allowed me to sit back, relax, allowed me to think. It allowed me time to really wrap my head around the situation and figure it out. And I think taking that time throughout that failure gave me so much more insight, gave me more patience to really figure out what I needed to do and how I actually needed to get that done. But when I go through and I think about it, the chair is still sitting in my shop. I haven't gotten around to actually finishing, sanding, that sort of thing. Eventually I will, but it's complete. Like I can stand on the chair and jump on the chair now and nothing would break. So I think. I haven't really tried full force. I bunny hopped on it, but it's about it. But it's all about taking that failure and flipping it around and giving someone something, or giving yourself a little bit of hope. And I think when we have a bad meeting or something that can go right, if you're in a leadership position and you messed up, you failed, how can you flip that failure around to make it a success? I've been in teams where people have a difference of opinion and it felt like everyone was against each other. And there's nothing a little bit more heartbreaking than that. The feeling of not being able to get anything done because no one agreed with anyone. There has to be a particular point where you as a leader stand up and say, look, we are failing right now. It's time to go. If you want to go, come with us. If you want to stay behind and keep meddling, then you're staying behind and we're moving on. And I think that's the hardest part as a leader, is when to actually have that tough conversation, because it's not a fun conversation to have as a leader. In fact, it's probably one of the worst conversations to have. You're acknowledging your and your team's failure. But how can you take that and turn that boat around? How can you make that failure better? And I think that's really the real talent in true leaders, is that they recognize their failure, but they've taken what's already kind of failed and built something upon that. They've taken that failure and used it as a base to build upon, to make something more, and to create something that's bigger than themselves. And that's the coolest part about failure, is that it gives you the opportunity to make changes. Imagine if you couldn't fail. Imagine, what would you learn? Nothing. Learning doesn't come from success. Learning comes from failure because you learned what didn't work. If everything just worked, you wouldn't learn anything. People always ask me how I learned a lot about computers, how I learned a lot about making things and interacting. Because I failed. I failed tremendously. I made a lot of stupid decisions, but I learned from those. I took those stupid decisions and said, okay, these don't work. Let's build upon it. Let's make something that can work. Let's make something that does work, right? That's the key. Make something out of those failures. Use those failures as building blocks to build upon. And I think when I talk to students about failure, I talk to them very in-depthly about failure when it comes down to distance learning. All of these students are failing right now. Even if they have an A, they're still failing. Right? In some point of their life, they're still kind of failing. Maybe it's diabolical or cynical or bad for me to say that, but they are. They may not be getting social interaction. They may not be getting any interaction with the content in terms of hands-on interaction, but they're getting nothing at all. And I think that's the problem, is that these students are not getting anything. Sure, us teachers try very, very hard. We put our heart and soul into our content, but our grades don't reflect it. It's difficult. It's one of the reasons why we need to be back in school, in my personal opinion. But we need to be back in school safely. That's really the real key here. So if I can push you guys, you listeners out there, to do better things, I would say that failure is good. Embrace it. Tackle it. Change it. Don't change yourselves, right? Don't change who you are because of your failure. Don't let your failure change you, I should say, right? Change who you are if you want to change yourself because of your failure, or maybe do something different. If that road didn't get you to the destination that you wanted to go to, take a different road. It's okay. As I think about failure, and as I sit back and really think about it, I like to think to my TikTok videos. I get made fun of a ton about these videos, but they've helped me so much with failure and learning how to create something that people want to see. I've developed quite a brand. As of right now, I am rolling at, let me look real quick at this TikTok page. I am rolling at almost 21,000 followers. I have over 600,000 likes on my videos, a few videos with 1 million plus views, and I look back and I kind of think about the videos that did really well and the videos that did not do very well. For some reason, the videos of my son that I think are funny and cute don't do very well. People don't like those. I don't know why. The videos of me testing out things, like in the United States, we have this thing called 5-minute crafts. Actually, I think in every country now, there's always like a branch of them, but it's like a Facebook group. If you haven't heard of them, they have these, they're not really crafts, they're more like life hacks. They're kind of stupid. And none of the stuff really actually works the way it's intended. So I decided to take these and actually do them. Actually try out the life hacks that they recommended. And so I went through and I did all these life hacks. I made all these life hacks and tested them all out, and they're all kind of comedic. And I realized those were a big success. Me giving quick tips were a huge success as well. What wasn't a success was my own personal life. So I thought. I mean, it's getting up there now. People want to know more about what I do, want to know more about what I teach, but it's really more about my teaching is what people want to see. People want to see what I am teaching. People want to see how I teach. They don't necessarily want to see what I do. They want to see how I teach it. And I think that's the coolest part for me, is that I can really display how my students learn, and I can display what failures create and what failures make. I failed at this social media game. I failed at distance learning. I mean, I want to meet someone who has succeeded or feels like they succeeded. I mean, I think in one aspect, I think I've made it. The other aspect, I think I've failed. But how you become better, how you use that failure and become better, well, you find what people like, what they don't like. My students react a lot when I take my phone, put on Google Meet, and go in the shop and show them different things. They react very well to it. So what I do, there's times I teach in the shop. I have a separate camera out there. Everything is set up, and I teach there, and kids really enjoy it. But it's balanced pretty nice. You're not going into the shop 100% of the time. You still have paperwork and stuff to get through. And that's kind of the most important part about kids, is that they need to make sure they get through the foundation before you start building. And I think failure is all a part of that foundation. Failure is a part of building something bigger than themselves. And I wish I can relay that information or convey the information in a different kind of aspect, but in a different way, because I feel like a lot of kids get really discouraged because they're failing a bunch. In fact, I feel like a lot of adults get discouraged too because they feel like they're failing too much. And that may be the truth. You may get discouraged because you're failing. But at the end of the day, if you weren't failing, then you means you weren't even trying. Trying equals failing. So my recommendation is to fail. Push forward. Try something new. Fail. Be brave to fail, right? Fail your best. And then take that failure, don't meddle in it, but make something out of it. Take that failure and make your life better with it. Take that failure and turn it into a success. Turn it into a win. right? And then keep going. Don't just stop because you won one battle. Don't just stop because you had one good meeting. Don't just stop because you had one bad one and you failed. Turn those failures, turn those successes into more good behavior. And just know that there's going to be more failures along the way. That's the crazy part about life. There is more failures along the way. Be ready for it. Be ready for it. In this world, we don't know what's going on. I hope everyone is safe out there. I hope we take our failures, and I really hope that we learn about them and we make our lives better because of our failures. I want to leave you guys with a quick story. When I was in high school, I was in FFA. That's currently a group that I am an advisor for right now, right? And my freshman year, I really wanted to run for an office position. My chapter officer, I really wanted to run for it. And I decided that I was going to run I guess I was slated for the Sentinel position. If you know about FFA, you know what I'm talking about. But if not, it's a part of like a leadership team that you run for, people vote, that sort of thing. Well, I figured I didn't need to put posters up. I didn't need to do anything to advertise for myself. I just figured I'd tell people and they'd vote for me. Well, I lost. I lost the election. I was extremely sad, devastated. I was heartbroken, really. Didn't really have much, motivation. It was horrible. But I never forgot that failure. I never forgot that feeling of defeat, that feeling of you suck, I never forgot that feeling. So what I did was, next year I ran again and I made posters. I made stuff and put it around. But I also realized I couldn't just make the typical posters that everyone else does. I had to really embrace things and make my own. In 2011, 2012, it was 2011, memes were just starting to become a big thing. It was those internet memes where it was like a stock photo of someone. There was like Bad Luck Brian and all those ones. And I would take those and make my own homemade memes. And by that time, no one really knew how to make memes. I guess you can just Google it, but no one really took the time to make them. Like now everyone kind of makes memes, and meme has a completely different word or different meaning than it did back then. But I made my own memes and I posted them everywhere. Everywhere I possibly could. I posted them all over the place, all over my school. And that year I won. And I was so happy I was a winner. But I never forgot that taste of failure, because my junior year when I had to run again, I remembered what that felt like. And I knew I wasn't going to let myself fail again. So I redid my entire campaign and redid everything and ran again. And I won again. And there was no harm or shame on anyone else. I just took my failures and I made myself better. I pushed myself harder. I pushed myself farther. I made myself better because I wanted the end goal. I wanted the officer position. I wanted it. And I knew my failure freshman year was just going to be a foundation to build upon and to keep growing, keep learning. And I did. Everyone out there listening today, I want you guys to fail at something. Now, don't deliberately ruin your life and say, G said that I should fail on this podcast. Don't do that. Don't live your life like that. But don't be afraid to go out and do something because you think you're going to fail. Be brave. Be bold. Reach out. Get whatever you want. And if you fail at getting it, at least you tried. And at least you know what you failed at, so you know the next time when you want it, your current action didn't work. Be better. Be bold. And be a winner, because winners only come from failures. All right? Hey, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate every single one of you. Remember, I have a Twitter @_ChipHappens. Please follow along there. I can give you guys and interact with you guys a lot more instead. I don't know why I said that. But it's always best to interact with you guys, and I really want to. If you came from TikTok, welcome. I know I've been trying to promote my stuff over there. I really appreciate every single one of you. If you guys want to go and see my TikToks, you can find me at Mr.Garibaldi on TikTok. You can find it there. I also have a YouTube channel, all that stuff. If you just go to TikTok, you'll find me. If not, follow me on Insta and on Twitter, and we can you'll get all my information that way. Hey, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Until next week, I will see you guys later. This has been an episode of the Chip Happens podcast. Thank you all for listening, and I will catch you next week with another exciting episode.